Our first place on this trip is Carlisle, Ohio. This is the home of three lines: the CSX Toledo sub, former Baltimore and Ohio, the Norfolk Southern Dayton District, former New York Central, and the Dupps Railroad. The Dupps Railroad is a private railroad that operates 5 miles of track between Germantown, Ohio, to the interchange connection at the north end of Carlisle siding on the CSX Toledo sub. Dupps was actually one point the NYC Cincinnati Northern Line. I also happen to know someone who used to make parts for Dupps back down in Xenia a while ago. Carlisle is also a good place to take rail photos, such as this one by Chuck Wambold of an NS train with BNSF power. Our first train of this morning is NS 171, westbound manifest out of Conway, Pennsylvania to Chattanooga, Tennessee. He'll go and work Sharonville in a few miles. This guy has 2 rebuild AC-44 C6Ms leading the way. I didn't exactly dress appropriate enough for it to be cold outside. I did expect it to be a little bit warmer, but it happens sometimes. After nothing else showed up in Carlisle, I ended up finding myself in another one of my favorite railfan spots in the Southwest, Hamilton. Hamilton is where the CSX B&O Depot stands. It was moved a couple years ago down to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard from its original location. As you can see right here, in that open spot over to the right was where the depot and building used to stand. It also gives you an open point of where the CSX Indianapolis line sub running up to Indianapolis goes. Not long after we got here, we see X276 coming up from the south. 276 is a new train running from Louisville, Kentucky to Jessup, Maryland with auto rack loads. The X means that this is an extra set of 276, which probably arrived in the Osborne Yard in Louisville when the train was already made up the previous day. At the time of the release of this video, his counterpart 277 will only be about maybe a week old, having started a little later than 276. A little bit later, I got bored of Hamilton and ended up deciding to move a little bit northwest to a place on the Newcastle district called Williamsdale. Williamsdale is a very nice place in the mornings. It's a nice spot as well because it sits in a church parking lot. That's always good. It parallels along Hamilton-Eaton Road. The Newcastle district does, all the way into Eaton. The sun angle in the mornings is pretty good here. Shortly after arriving, NS Train 142, a daily Chattanooga, Tennessee to Elkhart, Indiana manifest came up, with a Union Pacific GE leader and 2 surprises. Second, Bayline GP40s, both of them tracing back as having DT&I and Grand Trunk and Western heritage. .142 is usually of good size, and today was no exception. Variety of manifests like log cars, grain hoppers, auto racks, box cars, and tank cars. On the rear was an NS AC-44 C6M, rebuilt from a Dash 9 44 CW. I ended up following 142 up to 7 Mile. 7 Mile is another nice spot on the Newcastle district. By the time I got there, I saw 142's rear DPU in the siding, meaning that he was waiting on an eastbound. The eastbound had an advance approach, yellow over yellow, at the east end of the siding. At least that's what I think a yellow over yellow means over on the NS. I'm not sure. I'll have to do some more research into it later. In any case, his counterpart 143 came flying in. 143 is daily Elkhart, Indiana to Macon, Georgia manifest. Today with a single ES44AC pulling on the head end alone. 143 is usually a long train, and today he was no exception. The Newcastle district is known for being a high-speed place for trains. There are some parts on the line where the trains can go as fast as about 50 or 55. 143 was long enough today to warrant 2 mid-train DPUs, an SD70 ACE and an AC44 C6M. After 142 started going west, I decided to chase him into Camden. In Camden, the red building to the right, seen here, is the Depot, a pizza restaurant. It also serves as a drive-thru. I got an okay shot of 142 flying west through here. I decided to catch 142 again at the east end of the Campbellstown siding extension. Here it was a little bit backlit, but it was an open space, so I decided why not, and decided to shoot him rolling into the siding. The name of the new east end of the extension is called Toby for the road crossing in front of it. The siding in Campbellstown, the west end, was actually cut back about a mile and is now named Crawfordsville. Well, this has been a pretty interesting morning. And 142 I followed up from Williamsdale to here at Campbellstown. As you can see behind me, they recently extended the siding an extra mile. Used to go back up all the way up back there to Daly Road. In order to make this siding work, they had to close down 2 road crossings in the middle of a siding, which I don't think residents would be too happy about. And then they cut the siding portion that was in Campbellstown back a little bit, so trains that were stopping in the siding didn't block any other crossings, which they did at some point. We're going to finish up the morning here on the Newcastle, and then we're going to head over to the Toledo sub, maybe around Dayton or Tip City.
Let me know when you're ready.
I almost ended up leaving for lunch, but before I could move, Eastbound train 177 came and said hi. 177 today was intermodals on the head end and manifest on the back. This is a good example of precision scheduled railroading in use. Before NS's reassembling program of their intermodal trains, 177 was 25A, a daily intermodal train out of Chicago, Illinois, down to Danville, Kentucky. The intermodals down there would get sorted on the different road freights and taken down towards Alabama and Jacksonville. Now, before we continue, off to grab some lunch. Coming back to Camden, we notice NS train 189 coming in. He's coming in for a meet with NS train 188, as you can see down there. The Camden siding is just under 2 miles, but it's perfect enough to hold both these trains. 189 coming in is only about 40-something cars. 188 is about 75. 189 is daily Detroit, Michigan to East Point, Georgia manifest and autoracks, and usually carries a DPU, and today is no exception. The east end of the siding at Barnett Road was the place of a tragedy a while back. A young man was struck and killed by a train here during the wee hours of the morning. Rest in peace to him, and if any of his family is watching, my sincere condolences. This is a good use of how to meet short trains like this. 189 doesn't have to stop because the 188's tail end has already cleared the east end of the siding. 188 doesn't have to stop either, so he can keep going. 188 is the counterpart to 189. Instead of running from Detroit to East Point, he runs from East Point to Georgia and is usually all racks. Today he was headed up by NS 4003, an AC 44C6M with a black head, red mane, and the rest of it being silver. After 188 passed, I ended up deciding to go home. But on my way home, I heard the radio chatter about 3 CSX southbounds. So I decided to stop in Carlisle to catch them. The first one coming was a manifest. He was keeping radio quiet, so I never got his ID. So, not sure on the symbol of this one, although I might believe it's L420. Only about a day or two after shooting this video, L423 and his counterpart 424 were abolished. M558 and M559 were created to run between Willard and Cincinnati and would now do the job of taking traffic from Cincinnati to Lima of L424 and 420. Only about 15 minutes later, I got another high green for the second southbound. This was another manifest train, and once again he was keeping radio silent, so I wasn't sure on this one's ID either. I could tell you though that this was two ET44AH leaders, and some of the manifests on it may hint to either M351 or M511. Not sure though. Although not very popular as well as some of the names like Fostoria or Berea or Deschler, Carlisle is a pretty good place to come and sit and watch trains race in and out of the Cincinnati area. They can do at least 50 out here. Sperry truck came in a little bit later. I was actually surprised because I wasn't hearing him calling out his track authorities. Maybe I had the radio turned down or something. He wanted to go down to Hamilton, but the dispatcher needed to get I-141 ahead of him. So the Sperry truck went down to the south end of Carlisle on the main and would have I-141 running around him in the siding. It wasn't too long before I-141 came in with an ES44 AC-H duo. 141 is usually here through Carlisle around 1 to 3 p.m. in the afternoons. He's a daily train out of North Baltimore, Ohio to Fairburn, Georgia, with some work in Cincinnati. After I-141 cleared, I decided to head into Dayton on my way home. I actually got caught by this southbound CSX Autorack train. At this time of day, it would probably be M217. He was keeping radio quiet again. Just like I-141, he had an ES44 ACH pair. The last train was actually this NS 179 I caught near where the old downtown Dayton Union Station used to stand, with a BNSF duo on the head end. I didn't get to shoot his DPU. So it wasn't a bad day all in all. There was a lot of trains. The GP40 Bay lines were the catch of the day. There were some other good trains too of decent size and nice photo spots all around. Southwest Ohio can be pretty good for photos and videos, especially if you want to do them out in the country. Now this is CSC Productions signing off, and I'll see you all in the next video.